Good evening, everyone. Welcome to the forum held by the Greater Silver Spring Democratic Club. This is our 15th year of doing this. I'd like to thank our co-sponsors who have helped out. Women's Democratic Club, the Women's Democratic Club, the Montgomery County Green Democrats, District 20 Breakfast Club, Montgomery County Young Democrats, and District 20 Caucus. I'm going to give each one of the council members 10 minutes to introduce themselves. Lori, would you like to start?
Yes. So good evening, everyone. Good evening to the Greater Silver Spring Democratic Club members. Thank you so much for coming out, and all of the co-hosting organizations. Thank you to those near and far and those tuning in virtually. I'm so glad to be here with my colleagues after such a long but eventful day on the council. Thank you all for the work that you've done. For those who don't know who I am, my name is Lori Sales, council member at large, representing over 1 million plus residents in our beautiful Montgomery County. I live in the city of Gaithersburg, used to be on the Gaithersburg City Council, and now I'm honored to represent everyone as the only woman in the at-large space. I was appointed to the Economic Development Committee, the newly formed Economic Development Committee chaired by Councilmember Natalie Fani Gonzalez. And I also serve on the Health and Human Services Committee, where I've been named the lead for eliminating disparities in public health. I'm the daughter of proud Jamaican immigrants. My daughter is a proud graduate of MCPS schools, Montgomery College, and the universities of Shady Grove by way of College Park, University of Maryland. Go Terps. And what else? I ran on a SMART agenda. My agenda was about strengthening our commitment to education from cradle to career and beyond, making a living in our county more affordable, advancing local food production in our ag reserve, revitalizing our economy post-pandemic, and tackling climate change through multimodal transportation infrastructure solutions. It's a mouthful, but I was able to achieve all of that and more in my first budget, and I'm so grateful to be here with you all this evening and look forward to answering your questions throughout the night. Thank you.
Good evening, everybody. Hello, Silver Spring Democratic Club and friends. I'm Evan Glass. I'm a neighbor, live right up Flower Avenue, and have the honor of serving in my second term and serving as council president. And I'm delighted to have these two council members as colleagues. And I am really excited to be presiding over this council right now, which is halfway through the first year, believe it or not, in which we have a majority new council, a majority women council, and the most diverse council we have ever had. And so, yes, that is a thanks to all of you, the voters of Montgomery County, because 2 years ago, when I introduced the charter amendment to increase the size of the council by adding 2 districts, I knew that we needed more representation. I knew that we needed more diversity. So we created 2 positions, and you certainly fill them with incredible individuals who I'm proud to call colleagues and friends. And so we'll talk more, I know, about what's been going on at the council, but with this new council, I am serving as president, and I'm also serving as chair of the Transportation and Environment Committee, knowing that we have a lot more work to do to make sure that our bicyclists and pedestrians and drivers are all safe on our roads. This year alone, we've had more than 200 individuals who've been hit and 4 people tragically killed just this year alone. So we have a lot more work to do. And on the environmental front, we have a lot more work to do to make sure that we reduce carbon emissions by 80% by 2027 and reduce them completely by 2035. And so those are things that I'm working on the Transportation and Environment Committee. And I'm also on the Economic Development Committee. And when we formed this council, when we added 2 new people, I realized that we needed to have some changes at the council to accommodate 2 new people. So the first thing I did was create the Economic Development Committee so that we can work on bringing new jobs, good paying jobs, supporting small businesses, supporting minority businesses, talking about closing the wage gap, and talking about bringing Fortune 500 companies to Montgomery County as well. It's an all and above strategy, and we need that in order to increase our tax base to do good things here in the county. And so when I created the Economic Development Committee, there was so much interest from individuals, from colleagues, that it quickly became the largest committee on the council with 4 members. And so I'm a member of that committee as well. And so I look forward to tonight's conversation and appreciate you all taking the time to come out on a gorgeous, gorgeous spring evening. So thank you.
Hi everyone, I'm Kate Stewart. I am your District 4 representative on the County Council, and I'm glad to be here with you all this evening. So 6 months have gone by, and it has been a very busy 6 months for this County Council. I'm glad to say that I am chairing the Government Operations and Fiscal Policy Committee, as well as serving with Council President Glass on Transportation and Environment. In addition to that, this year I serve as the board chair for the Metropolitan Washington Council of Governments Board. That is a regional organization of 24 jurisdictions in the DMV area, and we work together on issues such as housing, climate change, and actually COG supports the Bike to Work Day, which starts tomorrow morning, and that I think all of us are getting up bright and early for. Anyway, I like to work with my colleagues regionally on these issues and bring what we learn home to Montgomery County. As I said, it's been a busy first 6 months, and just to touch on some of the highlights, and I know we'll get into some of the specifics in a moment, but I know public safety is something, I've talked to a number of you who are here tonight about that issue. Councilmember Glass and I did hold a public safety community conversation in March to talk to people, answer questions, share information, and think about next steps, particularly in the Silver Spring area. We do have a recording of that day, as well as the public safety walk we took with Commander McBain and Captain Reed in the neighborhood to learn what the police were doing there. In addition to that, yesterday I joined the Chamber of Commerce in Silver Spring, and they've begun a new initiative with working in partnership with the county government and the police department to have our local businesses work in partnership to make sure that they're staying informed and doing all they can to make sure that downtown Silver Spring is safe. And then yesterday, was it just yesterday? Yeah, I think it was just yesterday, or the day before. No, Tuesday, the late night bill. It was Tuesday, we passed the late night safety plan bill. And what that will do is make sure that businesses that stay open late into the evening, early hours of the morning, I guess, have a safety plan in place, and that they do this in coordination with departments in our county government, including the police department. And so I, on, what was it, last Friday night, I actually went out and visited a number of the late night establishments until about 2 a.m. in the morning. It's very much past my bedtime, but what I was glad to see is actually a number of the businesses that had already been working with our police department putting in place these types of safety plans that will be required in the near future. So those are some things that I'm happy to talk more about, the safety plans. The other thing that I'm very proud of that we have done is the changes we've made to the recordation tax, which is a one-time tax that you pay when you buy or sell your home. And the money that from that tax goes to support school construction and transportation projects. And when we started our budget process a few months ago, we were experiencing a $207 million gap in our infrastructure, our capital infrastructure projects, our CIP. And that was mainly going to result in school projects being delayed. And Councilmember Kristen Mink introduced a bill to increase the recordation tax. I worked with council members Fanny Gonzalez and Katz, as well as the council president, to amend that to make it more progressive so that it wasn't impacting people who were buying starter homes, but as you get a more and more expensive home, $1 million, over $1 million, you are spending more. Through doing this, we did two things. We closed the gap in our CIP, which is huge because that means right now, moving forward, we will not have big delays in our school projects, and we'll be able to fund our transportation projects on time. In addition to this, there's dedicated money going to eviction prevention. And this is really important because this also frees up money in our operating budget, which I'm sure we'll get into more conversations about budgets and our tax rate later. But that was a highlight, I think, for at least me, I'll say, in the last 6 months, to know that we're keeping these projects, you know, on schedule and moving forward because they're so needed. There's so much else to talk about, but I will end there and we can start the questions.
Okay, Lorianne, I'm going to give you the start, and after you finish, you can pass it to your right. The first question comes, I would like to know why we require a 10% property tax increase, which seems excessive.
I felt the same thing when we were presented with a 10% recommended budget from our county executive. We met, what was it, a month and a half ago to, you know, every year the county executive will host a breakfast to present the budget. And coming out of the pandemic, I think we all expected that things would be different with this budget, given the you know, exorbitant amount of money that was infused into budgets in the prior years during the pandemic. But as we all know, President Biden has called off the emergency resources and lifted the pandemic response, and so went the funds. And so we were all shocked by this budget recommendation, and immediately I looked into how we were going to clean up our own house and find savings to lower that burden that we would have to impose on our residents. However, I knew that this 10% tax was going towards our schools, whatever amount we all agreed to, and so I knew that tough decisions had to be made, and over the last month we've been making really tough decisions, like line by line, going through committee meetings to ensure that we found as much savings as possible. And so I'm really glad to have joined my colleagues earlier today in passing a 4.7% tax increase to fully fund our school contracts and other really important initiatives all across the committees and departments. And so, yes, looking forward to.
So a very timely question, and I appreciate the context that Councilmember Sales provides with regard to the question and the conversations that we had at the council. When we were presented with the 10% tax proposal, it was to fully fund MCPS. We decided that there were other ways to provide funding for MCPS. One of the ways was to look at job vacancies. On any given day, there were between 1,200 and 1,500 vacant jobs within Montgomery County government. And the money for those jobs are just sitting there. They're not being spent, but they're allocated. So we, at the council, undertook an enormous review of the entire budget and started reducing jobs that had been vacant for 1 year, 2 years, and in some instances 3 years, with monetary items attached to them that could not be spent on anything. because there were no people to occupy those jobs. So we repurposed that funding. And through this process, we were able to bring the 10% tax rate down to 4.7%. And that 4.7% provides $215 million to MCPS. That is the largest single amount that has been given to MCPS since before the pandemic. And that amount allows them to fully fund their labor contracts and provide additional support for classrooms. It is more money than the superintendent originally asked for in her budget. That's what we did today. And it was a 7-4 vote to support the tax increase. Some individuals did not think it was high enough. One of my colleagues thought it was too high. But in the end, we ended up supporting the budget 10-1 because we know that we have to have these investments. And so that's what we did today. That's what 4.7% tax increase is doing. And I know it's going to be hard. And that's why we didn't accept the 10%. The council did the hard work of finding other ways to pay for it. And that work is going to continue. And the county executive had said 5 years ago when he got elected that he wanted to help transform government. And so we're starting that process.
Thank you. So I was one of the 4 who didn't vote for the tax rate today, though I will say I was very close to where my colleagues came in, but I did have some reservations at the rate that we set it at because of some of the things that ultimately were left out of the budget, things that are dependent upon us really having to pay out. And I'm afraid that moving forward, given what the economic outlook looks like right now and knowing that we could be heading for a recession, I did have some reservations about voting for the proposed tax rate. One of my concerns, and I mentioned this with the budget when the county executive did present it to us in March, was the use of one-time dollars to pay for ongoing expenses in our budget. And that's something that continues to be a concern for me. But I will say, I think this council did a great job working together on this budget. I did vote for the overall budget because I think there's things in it that are very important. You know, as I look out today at many of you, I know folks here worked with Laura Charkoudian on community choice energy and getting that passed. And that was hard work to get that passed in Annapolis. One of the things that's in this budget is making sure that the county has the staff and consultants to help us move this project forward so that we actually do it correctly. And that all that work that she did doesn't go to waste, and that we actually get CCE here in the county. So I think that is excellent. We did a number of other things, as Council President Glass said, regarding the funding for the schools. We were also able to fully fund the contracts with our public unions, which is very important to me because most of our budget goes to the people who work for this county. And they are so very important, and they've been through a great deal, as all of us have, through COVID. And so for me, that was also very important to fully fund those contracts. And so we can get into what else is in that budget, but I will say it has truly been an honor to work with this council, work with the staff at the county, and all of you as we've been through this process.
Lorraine, we'll start with you again. The next question is, what do you think of providing police with a subsidy for county housing?
I think that's an excellent idea. I advocated for that while I was on the campaign trail. I believe it's important for our officers to live where they are surveilling the community. I feel like it's important for us to be recruiting from the community. We had a cadet program in the city of Gaithersburg, and we had quite a few cadets who went into the career of public safety after those internship experiences. And so If our officers, law enforcement, can afford to live in the community where they police, we can have improved relations between public safety and the communities because they know each other. They go to the grocery store here, they know their neighbors, they walk their dogs in the dog park together, and so we need more incentives. I know they have a few for educators at the state level, and I know that we just work with the county executive to provide bonuses for our officers since staffing levels are low. We're at a all-time low of recruiting and retaining our officers, and so any other incentives that we have to think about to incentivize more officers to live and work here and police our communities with dignity and respect, I'm all for it.
Can I remind you all that the question, we're giving you 1 minute.
1 minute, okay, well, Kim, come on, okay. We know that the best way to have policing is to have police officers who know the community, who are from the community. And whether or not it's providing a subsidy for officers to live in our communities, we are offering officers a $20,000 signing bonus. That started a few months back, and since that's been offered, we've had a 50% enrollment, right? Still not where the police department would like to be, but it is an improvement. And Councilmember Sales mentioned the cadet program. Last year, in last year's budget, I added $200,000 to the cadet program. And the cadet program basically allows high school students and college students to learn more, to intern with the police department so that they can become police officers. And the best thing about the cadet program is the cadets look like our community. Their racial and gender makeup is Montgomery County. And so we need to support this, we need to encourage this, and we're going to continue doing so.
I'm not sure I have much to add if we want to go to the next question, because I agree with my colleagues. I would say the other thing to think about is not just housing subsidies in the county for police officers, but for other frontline workers is really important, and our educators as well. And so I think this is something that we need to look at across the board, but agree starting with police would be a good idea.
Kate, will you start with the next question?
Sure.
Last year, we called 911 and could not get through. A dispatcher called back later to say that there were insufficient staff to answer calls. Has this changed?
Unfortunately, no. Sorry. Last year, the question was last year we called 911 and could not get through. Dispatcher called back later to say they were insufficient staff to answer calls. Has this changed? I'll say no. Unfortunately, it has not. It is something that Councilmember Katz chairs our public safety committee. It's something I've talked to him about, and we've raised this at the public safety committee. And it is a problem, as Council President Glass said. Not just with our police officers, but with our emergency workers, with our dispatch. We are low. We need to hire more people to work these jobs, and these are very tough jobs. There is a great deal of turnover in them, and we need to do better.
I'll just add to that we've supported our labor contracts there too, recognizing that inflationary pressures and job competitiveness require us to keep up and require us to pay our staff the best we can.
Oh, actually, I did. We actually did in the union contracts this year, actually for folks who do work in 911, there were extended benefits for those positions. And so hopefully these are the type of things that we're going to build in incentives so people are attracted to the positions and they stay here.
Ditto.
There you go.